You're listening to Nicksology on ESPN 1700. Buckle up as anything goes and having fun is the only rule we have. Now here's your host, Nick Apostolopoulos.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nicksology, brought to you by 619 Vodka. I want to mention that you can reach out to us at Nicksology.com and, of course, hit us up on Facebook.com/Nicksology. In fact, I want to clue you in. We love giving away free stuff around here, so I have a pair of tickets to the San Diego Reader Tacotopia Fest this weekend in Bankers Hill. If you go to the Facebook page, we have a post up there. Share the post, put a little blurb in about why you want the tickets, and you can win 2 tickets to Tacotopia. So today's show, we're going to do an all-whiskey show. For those of you that know me, I'm really partial to a good whiskey, and so we've got some great guests today to talk about whiskey. I've got, first of all, Jeremy LeBlanc, who is the lead bartender and mixologist at Park Downtown. He's the brand ambassador for Kimosabi Mezcal, and he's written a book called The Best Craft Cocktails and Bartending with Flair. And also with us is Chad Berkey. He's the general manager of the Aero Club, which is an awesome place for whiskey. If you've never been down there, you got to check it out. And also recently, he's been tapped to be the spokesperson and mixologist for Libby Glassware, which is pretty damn cool. And then together they've written a book called The North American Whiskey Guide from Behind the Bar. So when the show is over, I will be posting links to those on our Facebook and webpage. You can get the books at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart. Like I said, I'll have all those links on the website. But quickly, let me welcome Jeremy and Chad to the show. How you guys doing, man?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Thanks for having us, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I was cruising through the book last night, and one of the things I mentioned to you guys before we came on the air is that, you know, part of this show is to sort of try and demystify the whole culture around mixology and drinking and that sort of stuff, and that, you know, you don't have to be a 20-year experienced bartender to make some cool cocktails at home. That's one of the things I love about the first book, Jeremy, is that it's basically kind of, you know, demystifying it and talking about what you can do at home. You don't really need all the fancy training. So tell us a little bit about that book. How did that come about? Like, what was your impetus for writing that?
Well, at one point, it's kind of a funny story. My father was playing pool with one of the guys from Macmillan Publishing, and it just happened they were talking about, you know, here's my son. He's out in California now, and he's started this company with Chad, which we'll talk about a little later. But it just all came about where he said, "Oh, you know, we were thinking about doing a craft cocktail book or kind of a recipe book." And can I talk to your son, just maybe as a consultant? So I got on the phone, and then next thing you know, 45 minutes later, they asked me to write The Best Craft Cocktails and Bartending with Flair. And at that point, my hands went, you know, real sweaty, and I politely said, absolutely, I sure will. So that came about, and then I got off the phone immediately and called Christine Dionese, which is my co-author on there, and we put a beautiful book together.
Awesome, dude. Yeah, one of the things I love about it too is it's all the shots are from around San Diego, right? Local bars. You had local bartenders help out with the drink recipes and things like that.
Yeah, we wanted to go and do a great approach, keep San Diego as our focal point. So we ended up going into like 6 craft cocktail bars, like Prohibition, Lion's Share, and obviously the Aero Club. We did some great shots there, and we took some amazing cocktails, classics with a twist, and there's different chapters in there, but they're it can get really crafty, but there's also some really cool cocktails in there that you're going to find no problem, getting the ingredients and making it at home.
Right. So actually, that's one of the things I was wanting to ask you when I was looking through this last night, because I love a good cocktail. I'm partial to a good Manhattan.
Who doesn't?
I love a really well-made cocktail, but I also feel like some of the mythology around mixology is a little kind of overblown. In fact, when we first started the show, I got to figure out how to weave it in here, but there's a band in LA called Fog and Smoke, and they did this whole song about mixology. Have you guys heard that?
Yeah.
And it's a whole spoof on mixology, and look, I just want a rum and Coke, and the guy goes, oh, you must mean a Cuba Libre, and he's like, I just want a rum and Coke. And so one of the things I was reading in your book, and I'm sure it makes some kind of difference, but this whole thing between shaking and stirring. Like if you mix, and one of the, I think the example here was like a Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the drinks you really want to make sure you stir. And I guess my question is, if you went into a bar or if I went into a bar and I made you one and I shook one and I stirred the other, would you really be able to tell the difference? No, would you be able to tell the difference? Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Some kind of different, but what is the difference exactly?
Well, there's a couple of different. Here's the whole thing. To get on, to go into that whole thing, I consider myself, mixologist. I've always, I started bartending 17 years ago. I consider myself a bartender. I'm a true blue, old school bartender, just as Chad is. Mixology is a relatively new, term and stuff like that. And, I'm not bashing anybody out there, but I do consider myself, what I always say is I'm a mixologist caught in a bartender's body. It's kind of one of those things. But, there is, and Chad could definitely speak on this, there is a difference where, there's different spirits that you don't want to shake. You don't want to shake, type of like a Manhattan. You don't want to bruise the bourbon. You want to do like 30 rotations with your spoon. There are rules and proper ways to make certain cocktails, and that's the whole thing about these cocktails. You want them consistent. They are classic. They are they've had the whole longevity of being called a classic cocktail. So that difference between shaking something, which would be more of a lighter spirit, maybe a vodka or anything, but more so on a bourbon, wouldn't you say, Chad, that you definitely don't want to shake too much bourbon?
Oh, absolutely. Most of the bourbon we stir up, unless it's there's different ingredients that you mix, when you do like a sour, for instance, with the egg white and stuff, that needs to be vigorously shaken. But for the most part, you don't want to, over water down the bourbons and stuff, because people are there to really get the taste of the corn or the rye or whatever the ingredients is. That makes sense to me too, because I like a little ice in my bourbon, even when I'm drinking it. I generally don't drink it neat. I like a little bit of ice, but yeah, you don't want it to be too watered down. That makes a little more sense. A little bit of water never hurts, so it's proven to open it up.
It does. And enhance the flavor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So. And and with there's when you serve a lemon drop or a Cosmo, a vodka drink, we shake the heck out of those things because people enjoy a little bit of ice crystals.
So that's the other flip side of that, right? Is the cocktail that they shake for they look like they're working on a shake weight for 10 minutes trying to make a cocktail. Is that more about the flair of the bartending, or is it really about the drink, or both? Or
it all comes into showmanship a little bit. You know what I mean? I've always prided myself on what's called like working flair, and it's basically just being comfortable in your bar atmosphere.
Okay.
You're not stopping and flipping bottles, and in the same time with like crafting a cocktail, you're not stopping for 5 minutes to crack ice in a towel. You can get if you can factor all those things in and kind of flow with the bar, maybe flip something here or there, but never stopping to get you want to get the customer their drink as fast as possible. So when I see that's when I know there's a good bartender, good mixologist behind the bar.
And here's the whole thing, you're going into different establishments and everything like that. So if you're going into, say, a Flair bar for some, you're going to obviously see the bartender Flair. If you're going into, something like a $7,000 or something like that.
I was about to bring up $7,000, which I actually love it. It's close to my house. It's a great bar, but the problem is when it gets busy, it's 20 minutes to get a cocktail.
Yeah, no,
and I get it, right? And they can only have so many bartenders back there and whatnot. But at the same time, it's
very crafty.
Yeah, it's very crafty, but they also try and run it like a nightclub, and so they put a lot of people in there, and then I can't get a freaking cocktail to save my life. So, all right. Well, speaking of which, too, the other question I mentioned I want to ask you guys is, speaking of the snooty bartender thing, and I have to bring it up as the owner of 619 Vodka, is the whole vodka thing. Like, this has driven me crazy for a long time. I understand that we're trying to do classic cocktails and that's sort of the focus, but then you go into a place like Noble Experiment or Craft and Commerce, and they don't even carry vodka. They won't carry a single bottle of it. They make their own ketchup, or they don't even call it ketchup, whatever you want to do. But so what's the big negative against vodka? Why is it such an anti-craft spirit?
Well, I can tell you one thing. Vodka is is huge, as you know. Vodka's not going anywhere. Different scenes, different places, different venues are going to have, something that they're going to sell more of. Being in more of a craft cocktail atmosphere, a lot of single batch spirits are going to be used. So they're going to bring in a lot of the whiskey flavors and what's really trending. So vodka's been out there for such a long time, and so is whiskey. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's the point, but what's really trending right now is obviously gins, your whiskeys, mezcal. For 100% mezcal is kind of one of the number one trending spirits as of the moment. So there's a lot of more flavors that they're I think the whole thing behind it is that vodka puts on different flavors artificially and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I definitely have an issue with that. And you guys know I'm working on the infusion
of course,
lines
absolutely.
because to me, whipped cream vodka is not a drink.
and they've gotten a bad rep for that that sort of stuff. But there's a market out there for it. There is. I mean, it's a different it's a different venue. It's a different place. Not to say one spirit's better than the other. There's a market for all of them.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start diving into the whiskeys. You're listening to Nicksology on ESPN Radio.
You're listening to Nicksology on ESPN 1700. Brought to you by 619 Vodka, who reminds you to always drink responsibly. Find out more at 619vodka.com.
Hey, Mr. Credit here. If you ever catch me at happy hour, you'll probably catch me drinking a vodka martini. Now, I don't always drink vodka, but when I do, I drink 619 Vodka because it's local vodka from right here in San Diego. I know the owner, and you can meet him too. Go to 619vodka.com and think 619 Vodka when you're out there having a good time. That's 619vodka.com. And of course, remember to always drink responsibly.
CS Keys here to tell you about San Diego's handcrafted ultra premium vodka, 619 Vodka. It's distilled and filtered 5 times, gluten-free, and made from 100% pure mountain spring water for a smooth, clean finish. It's a 2-time silver medal winner and a 2-time gold medal winner already in 2013. America's finest city has America's finest vodka that everybody can experience. Just go to the website, 619vodka.com. If you know like I know, you better tell somebody.
We really are making a difference in the lives of children, and our CPA is helping us do that.
Sheila Boxley, CEO and President, Child Abuse Prevention Center.
Donors have choices about where to donate their funds, and we're able to produce for them a very professional, full audit about how well we've managed our funds, and we couldn't do that without our CPA.
Certified public accountants are at the heart of sound financial decision-making, providing objective financial guidance to help companies grow and families build financial security.
If we didn't have a CPA helping us, we would not be able to provide the services that we provide.
Make sure your CPA is a member of the California Society of Certified Public Accountants. Trusted, objective, at the heart of sound financial decisions.
Our CPA helps us manage our organization so that we can do what we do best, which is to protect children and keep families healthy. That's the reason we do the work we do.
To ask a CPA, visit calcpa.org.
Oof, sounds like a nasty storm. Time to increase the strength and integrity of your roof with the Owens Corning Total Protection Roofing System. Our integrated high-performance layer-by-layer design was created to help keep your home protected and secure all year round. Woo, that is some wind. But inside your house, let Owens Corning and the Pink Panther give your home the Panther touch. Get the Owens Corning Total Protection Roofing System. Visit owenscorning.com/roofing for details. Exclusions apply.
Did you know that your electoral rights extend further than when you vote in the election? The Electoral Justice Court of the state of Baja California guarantees through the Electoral Authorities Act, according to the Constitution and the law, that your citizen rights are respected even in a non-electoral year, like the right to participate freely and peacefully in the political issues of your community. Visit the court through their webpage, tje-bc.gov.mx, for more information. Electoral Justice Court of the state of Baja California.
And now, back to Nicksology on ESPN 1700. Brought to you by 619 Vodka, who reminds you to always drink responsibly. Find out more at 619vodka.com.
All right, welcome back. We're talking to Jeremy LeBlanc and Chad Berkey. I also want to remind you guys, too, that online you can live stream the show, and you can actually do it this week. I remembered to turn it on at livestream.nicksology.com, or you can go to liveaudio.nicksology.com and just listen to the ESPN live feed from there, the audio version. All right, guys, so we talked a little about mixology. I kind of want to get into the whiskey part of things. Now, the book you guys wrote is the North American Whiskey Guide. You focused on USA and Canada. But before we get into that, I kind of wanted to do an overview of whiskey in general, because I don't know if it's obviously vodka is the biggest selling spirit in the world, but I'm guessing there are more varieties of whiskey than almost anything out there on the planet, right? I mean, somebody told me the other day, I heard a statistic that there were like 2,500 distilleries of Scotch just in Scotland. Like one for every 10 people or something. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but something like that. And it's obviously popular in Japan now and whatnot. But so yeah, tell me about the world of whiskey.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, Japanese whiskeys are flying off the shelves now. You know, especially at the Aero Club, where we have over 1,000 whiskeys to pick from. The Japanese stuff sat there for a long time, and just recently the Suntory distillery with its, the Yakasami.
Jim Beam.
Yeah, it is. The Yamasaki is the 18-year sherry cask, just won best whiskey in the world. So they're 12-year. They're other. I can't keep them on the shelves. I'm on a waiting list for them now. So
the thing for those guys. So do they grow the grain there? Do they import the grain?
Yeah, it's a malt whiskey. Obviously it can't be called a Scotch, but a malt whiskey. Malted barley, and they're known for their fine tuning. They're very precise, very accurate on their distilling, and they know what it takes to make a great, great. So
are they
whiskey.
basically trying to? Are they basically making scotches, but they can't call them scotches? Or
well, exactly.
Are they making all varieties?
Scotches, legally scotches are obviously from Scotland, and I think there's over 105. Solid distilleries over there right now pounding out stuff, but they're typically aged 2 years. They're made from malted barley, and what makes most of the scotches unique is the peating process, is where they after malting the barley, soaking it, they dry it over the kilns, fire. and then they infuse that into the distilling process.
So I was watching, actually 60 Minutes had recently something about the Islay, is that the place where the
Isla, yeah.
Isla, sorry, I get that stuff wrong, and how that's what they're known for is peat moss coming out of their ears. But the thing is, not all Scotch is like that, right? Like, I was surprised to learn, because I'm not a big Scotch guy, because I don't like the smoky flavor.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And then at some point, in the last 5-10 years, I got introduced to Macallan, and Macallan doesn't use any peat.
Right. Yeah, a lot of them don't. The different.
And I always thought that was like sort of a rule of Scotch, right?
No.
It had to be smoky. It had to taste like a bonfire, basically.
Yeah. Well, the peat grows in that area, in the Isla area. That's where it's mostly known for. But the Highlands, the Lowlands, the Speyside. The Speysides were always my favorites. You know what I mean? And they all have very different characteristics, and that's why I always encourage blind tasting. When people come into the Aero Club bar, I'll set up a flight for them often with one of each of those whiskeys that define that region, and then that way people can really discover what they like, and then there's some of the blended scotches are really good too, and the whole argument there is, a single malt scotch is everything's made at a single distillery, whereas the blended stuff they pull from all over, and they say, hey, we're buying the best from everywhere, so this is the best. But what tends to happen is, like, if you took a bunch of wine and you poured a Merlot and a Cabernet all together, they kind of lose their identity.
Right.
So it's another good thing is you like what you like, and man, there's good scotches from all those regions for sure.
Now, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the coolest things is, if we were going to talk about Scotch in our book, we could write a novel.
Well, that's the thing. You could have
that's the whole
do a
thing.
Whole encyclopedia just on Scotch.
Absolutely. That's why we ended up doing North American whiskeys, Canada, and obviously the U.S. and focused on the 250 of the most popular whiskey. Cocktails and also spirits, just coming out of the Aero Club.
Right.
That was very cool.
Every bottle that we wrote about is on the wall of whiskey at the Aero Club. You can come in.
Very easy to get.
You need to have one of those try them all clubs where you get a card and you get stamped, and then when you get through 250,
Something to think about, huh?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Should have put that in the back of the book. Yeah.
I don't like to encourage people to come in and slam shots down to reach their goal, though.
And then we can send them to, we can send them over to Kentucky. It's like the 100 list.
Yeah,
if
that's
you can
more
make the
for
100
PB,
list.
I think.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
Exactly.
The Aero Club is a very cool, calm, collective place, and we like it like
Yeah,
that.
our motto is be good or be gone.
That's it.
And then what about like Irish whiskeys? Obviously, same sort of region, but a totally different character, right?
Love
and
it.
it's again,
Love
it's
it.
made with malted barley. I think there's really on the island of Ireland there's I think 7 distilleries.
Okay, because obviously everybody knows Jameson.
It's a major one.
Yeah.
But there are other good ones out there too, right?
Yeah.
Bushmills, right? I think.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff is made under the same roofs over there. But a couple of our most popular right now are the Green Spot, the Green Ore, those the Red Breast. Those are all some of the top Irish. And they're those are distilled 3 times, as where most Scotches are 2, and they're both like Irish and Scotch are both aged in oak barrels. And a lot of the U.S. bourbon barrels
that's the cool
find
part
their
about
way
them,
over there.
right, is that they don't have the restrictions that the bourbons do, so they can use bourbon barrels and sherry barrels and all that kind of stuff to get different characteristics for whatever they're putting together.
Yeah, and there's some incredible stuff, especially like the Glenmorangie line. They're putting out like Sauterne barrels, which is a dessert wine from Bordeaux, France. There's sherry barrels, port. I mean, you can really get some incredible flavors from those barrels, from the residual sugars.
Okay. And then from the mixologist side, Jeremy, like when you attack like trying to make a cocktail, especially when we were talking about like the scotches, they're so different and smoky, do you try and pick what you have in mind to make a cocktail and then find the right smokiness to go with it, or do you start with, hey, here's a great scotch and I'm going to try and figure out what I can do to bring out the flavor or to complement it or whatever? Like what's your direction?
Well, for one thing, I'm a fan of smokiness.
You are? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm the brand ambassador for Kimosabi Mezcal.
Right.
We're a smoky spirit and a clean smoky spirit. But just to answer your question, there's different cocktails that I obviously love to use with different types of bourbon. One of the cool things that I'm doing actually at Park right now, I actually got a 10-gallon barrel from a company in Ohio that sells infused maple syrup, whiskey maple syrup. And
that bourbon maple syrup?
Yeah, the bourbon. You've had it, right? It's delicious.
That's pretty amazing.
They sent me a 10-gallon barrel. They put Oregon gas in it.
You didn't call me?
Oh, dude. Well, you got to come to Park. You got to come to Park and taste this. So me and my director Nick David, we threw in raisins, vanilla bean, and 6 bottles because this is our test thing. 6 bottles of we ended up using. What did we end up using? I think Maker's Mark. We ended up using Maker's Mark, and it just came out fantastic. And we're doing some kind of cool classic cocktails with it. One being the old fashioned. That is. I mean, you kind of can do a lot with that, but just to have that as it's aged, and we only did it for 2 months, and it's just fantastic.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
that maple syrup is pretty amazing.
It's bomb, dude.
Yeah,
it is.
It's pretty awesome.
It sure is.
Very cool. Actually, you brought up something else that you just jogged my memory about. So the old fashioned, which you would think, right? It's supposed to be a very standard cocktail.
Oh, but it's not.
It's different everywhere. Why is it? Is it because people just don't know how to make it right, or is it because everyone's got their variation? But because to me, it's not a little bit different every time. It's a lot different.
So here's how it goes. I make a seasonal menu for my venue at Park. So I try to take different types of either fruits or syrups and infused syrups and stuff like that to be seasonal. Say for instance, like wintertime, we were doing, winter old fashioned. It was so popular, I kept it on for the spring as well. But we did a spiced simple syrup, and that kind of changed the profiles of it. You're using different types of cherries or different types of bitters. It literally changes the profiles of the cocktail.
Okay.
But I mean, it's the ingredients are pretty much the same, but there is going to be the twist on it.
Well, I have to say the one of the best Manhattans I ever had, old fashions, was multiple places do this, is when they take the cherries and soak them in bourbon or something else beforehand,
Fantastic.
right? So you get the flavor out of that.
Yeah, it adds a whole nother
it's not just
kick
a maraschino
to it, for sure,
cherry.
yeah.
Those Luxardo cherries, those are the ones.
Right.
Those are the good. Those are the good
I have
boys.
a jar of those in the fridge. Yeah, that's awesome.
Either that or a Bing cherry. Those are good too.
Right. Okay, so before we get to the bourbons, I want to stop one more place, which is Canadian whiskeys.
Right.
So I always considered them to be... Yeah, I mean, so my experience with Canadian whiskey is Crown or Seagram 7, and they tend to be a lot sweeter than regular whiskeys, just not something I'm generally a fan of. Am I missing out on other good Canadian whiskeys?
Oh, yeah. I mean, by doing the book, we discovered, we pulled down a lot of the ones from the top. There were a few standouts, but typically, because in the book I had four bartenders, they blind tasted every single whiskey. So they didn't know if the taster they got was Jack Daniels or Pappy Van Winkle, you know what I mean? But what they did know that what they were about to write about it was going to get published. So when you have that, you really think about what you're tasting and what you're going to write. And, most of the bartenders were able to pick out the Canadian whiskeys. They were typically, they're typically a little bit lighter. They don't have as strict of mash bill regulations as, typically people think they're mostly rye, but there's a lot of corn in there. They blend with corn, wheat and barley, and they typically have a lighter profile. And you can pick them out, but that being said, they're awesome for mixing and sipping, and and a lot of whiskey drinkers that come in, especially if their palate isn't as developed yet, they'll pick a Canadian out of a blind taste flight as the one they like
because they're more accessible, lighter, easier to get into.
But at one time, the Canadian whiskey was king. Prohibition, when it was being snuck over into the United States. They were. It was the biggest thing going. For a long time there. And then one of the standouts in the book though is John Hall and his 40 Creek. So that's a label. If you want to try Canadian whiskey, that was one that the bartenders voted unanimously good. It got the highest rating that we gave from any of the Canadian whiskeys.
Okay. And the Canadian whiskeys, they aren't generally classified as rye, bourbon, or do they do that as well?
No, they don't.
They're just Canadian.
Yeah, right? Unless they specify,
unless
you
ask a Canadian.
Yeah.
The Canadians, it's funny, if the Canadians come down and they'll be like, hey, can I have a rye? And you'll be like, well, I don't have any, I don't have any Canadian rye. And they're like, no, all Canadian whiskey. Right. Let's go to the bottle on that one.
Right, that's pretty funny.
Those Canadians.
Yeah.
I'm one of them actually.
But yeah, we sell. There's no bar out there, and we touch on it in the book. What bar doesn't have Crown Royal or whatever? So the name because it's good.
Yeah. No, that's the one everybody knows. All right. Well, let's take another quick break. We're talking to Jeremy LeBlanc and Chad Berkey. When we come back, we'll dive into the book and get some of your kind of secret favorites out of there.
We got some secret favorites.
Good. All right, cool. We'll be right back.
Hey, Mr. Credit here. If you ever catch me at happy hour, you'll probably catch me drinking a vodka martini. Now, I don't always drink vodka, but when I do, I drink 619 vodka because it's local vodka from right here in San Diego. I know the owner, and you can meet him too. Go to 619vodka.com and think 619 vodka when you're out there having a good time. That's 619vodka.com. And of course, remember to always drink responsibly.
CS Keys here to tell you about San Diego's handcrafted ultra premium vodka, 619 Vodka. It's distilled and filtered 5 times, gluten-free, and made from 100% pure mountain spring water for a smooth, clean finish. It's a 2-time silver medal winner and a 2-time gold medal winner already in 2013. America's finest city has America's finest vodka that everybody can experience. Just go to the website, 619vodka.com. If you know like I know, you better tell somebody.
Flo from Progressive here on the road with Gail. Tell us about yourself, Gail.
I'm the proud owner and operator of Paws for Style mobile dog grooming.
Clever. Did you know that with Progressive Commercial Auto Insurance, you can save money with discounts like Safe Driver, Business Experience, and Paid in Full?
Sure do.
Well, did you know that I am fluent in dog?
No.
That means I wish my tail was made of bacon.
Discounts to help your business save. Visit Progressive.com to learn more. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
Right now, the Home Depot has large, eye-popping 1-quart Vigoro annuals, 4 for just $10. So let's add color to your yard, patio, or window box. These big, vibrant, nursery-quality annuals are ready to put on a show in your garden, and they're sure to get rave reviews. Let's do this. Spring all out for less with 1-quart Vigoro annuals, 4 for just $10, only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. While supplies last, selection may vary by store, U.S. only.
This is Brandon Tierney with the CBS Sports Minute. One thing I've never been shy about is professing my admiration for LeBron James, particularly in an era where it's more about self than team. Not with the king, not with this guy. However, one thing that's becoming very obvious is his passive-aggressive nature. Say what you will about Kobe, but the Mamba lets you know exactly where you stand, and if you don't like it, that's too bad. But LeBron, he bounces to a different tune. Just ask Kevin Love or his coach, or at least his coach in theory, David Blatt. Listen, it's painfully obvious Blatt's in over his head, but the thinly veiled shots by the king, not to mention straight up putting him on blast after scrapping his play on Sunday, not cool. Maybe I'm nitpicking, maybe I'm overanalyzing, but for all the things he does right and does well, he's not perfect. Ask his coach. I'm BT.
Hi, here's your delivery from Staples.com.
Thanks, Staples guy. My office is starving. Got any snacks?
Staples has pretzels, granola bars, energy bars, trail mix, all at a low price.
Nuts?
Cashews, almonds, pistachios, pecans, walnuts.
Chips?
Potato chips, corn chips, whole grain chips, gluten-free chips.
Whoa, that's a lot of snacks.
We also have antacids. Tablet antacids, liquid antacids. Make on budget happen, make break time happen. Staples, make more happen. Now at Staples, get a 42-ounce bag of M&M's milk chocolate or peanut candy for just $8.99.
Offer valid on SKU 689508 and 689504 and 523 while supplies last. See store staples.com for details.
O'Reilly. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts during our Clean Car Month sale for great deals on everything you need to keep your car looking like new. You'll find washes, waxes, glass cleaners, interior care, and more. Plus, O'Reilly carries the brands you know and trust, including Armor All, Meguiar's, Turtle Wax, and Eagle One. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. And now, back to Nicksology on ESPN 1700. Brought to you by 619 Vodka, who reminds you to always drink responsibly. Find out more at 619vodka.com.
All right, welcome back. We're talking whiskey with Jeremy LeBlanc and Chad Berkey. And let's dive right in, guys. So the main book that we want to talk about today is the North American Whiskey Guide. It just came out last year, right?
Came out in just actually right before Christmas in December 15th, I believe. Yeah, cool. 2014.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I was actually just cruising through the book last night, and I love that, when it says guide, I was still expecting it to be more of a cocktail book, but I like that you basically took time to sort of to judge the whiskeys and put in tasting notes and things like that. And so tell us about that process. You were saying you had blind tastings with bartenders and that sort of thing?
Yeah, when Jeremy and I got the deal to do the book, they basically gave us artistic freedom on how we wanted to set it up. So we came up with a way to do it with having the bartenders at the Aero Club blind taste it. So you have 4 people that drink whiskey pretty much every day, night, and a couple of them in the morning, I think. Sorry, John. But this way, you have 4 different palates, and what we were trying to capture in the guide was, most whiskey books are written by an expert, and they give you 100, adjectives that most people really would never pick up in the whiskey, to try and find them. So what we wanted to do was put together a whiskey guide with, a summary that Jeremy and I worked really hard to just give you the most important stuff we thought that you would want to know, the cool stuff. If you're in a bar and you're talking to the bartender, fun stuff like that. We did a fun fact on each one, all the stats on the bottle, the barrel, the age, the proof, the price, all that good stuff. But what makes it truly unique is the blind tasting. So you get 4 different opinions, and like I said, they got a glass, and they had no idea what was in it. But they did know what they were going to say was going to get published. So that really makes you think when you're tasting it and what you're going to write. And what we were hoping to capture is, as a reader, when you read the 4 different opinions from these guys and you find similarities, you're going to get a really good idea by the end of it what that whiskey's probably going to be like and whether you'll like it or not. And that was the whole goal of, putting together a guide like this. So it's super user-friendly.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I like it. And you break it down by, obviously, the Canadian whiskeys, which you already talked about, but even in the Americans, by bourbon, Tennessee, rye. So something because I'm a big bourbon fan, so I knew the whole, and I think probably has the most strict rules of any American whiskey, right? 51% corn, brand new charred white oak barrels, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the bourbon, the rye, and the malt follow those regulations.
Oh, the rye and the malt do too? Okay, because I was going to say, tell me more, because I know Jack Daniel's is technically not a bourbon because they do the filtration through the charcoal, which in the book you mentioned is basically a Tennessee whiskey.
It is. That is unique to Tennessee. And I didn't realize there were a lot
of other distilleries doing that. I thought it was kind of a Jack Daniel's thing.
No, it's been a big legal battle there for a while because Pritchard's, one of our favorites, that got, their rye got the highest rating that we gave after the blind tastings. They don't use the, they call it the Lincoln County process.
Oh, that's right.
Where they filter it through the charcoal maple. So it was legally required, then they fought it, now it went back to where it's not legally required. So, but in general, like the Dickel and some of the main distillers coming out of Tennessee, they do use that process.
Okay.
But it's not legally required as of now.
Okay. And so this is going to be a dumb question then, but so a rye is obviously made predominantly from rye, or what are the rules around
and
rye?
it's 51% or more, and it's the same. I mean, it's the grain just like rye bread, so it typically has a peppery, spicy kind of flavor, which Jeremy will tell you, it makes it great for mixing up, a lot of the cocktails and stuff like that. But, like you had mentioned, new charred oak barrels for a couple years.
And that's the same with rye, too?
Yeah, it has to be 80 proof or more in the bottle. It can't be distilled to more than 80 proof. Like, it can't go into the barrel at more than 125 proof. So, so there's some legal requirements there, and then you get into, they add water, obviously, to all the whiskey to bring it down. But there are, now there's barrel strength, there's different, cast strength.
They have cast strength stuff.
Small batches, single barrels. So, so there's a lot of different, ways you can get the whiskey like that.
Okay. And so one of the other things we talked about, too, is that there's a ton of whiskeys out there, but a lot of them come from the same family tree, right? Like I sent you guys that link. There's a GQ article that from a couple years ago that talks about how, Buffalo Trace and does Pappy Van Winkle and Sazerac and all these. So there's really only a few. There's only a few big guys, right?
There really are, and there's 4 or 5 main big distilleries, but 90% of the product of the bourbon and stuff is coming out of Kentucky,
right?
But that's not to say that there isn't great stuff coming out of other places.
Seattle, I mean, a lot on the West Coast, they're just popping up everywhere.
And one of the secret things we talked about too that people don't really know is that you can, you and I could decide to start a whiskey and basically go to those guys and buy up whiskey. We can go to Jim Beam and Jack Daniel's and those guys. And so one of the ironies is that a lot of these smaller labels that are doing these blends are actually putting out better product because they get to walk in and say, hey, I want that barrel, I don't want that barrel. And they kind of get to pick the cream of the crop before Jack Daniel's has to take the rest and bottle it, right?
Well, they're definitely, Jack Daniel's has what they want.
Yeah, they're doing something right, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, but it's true, it's called sourcing whiskey, and if you have a good if you have a good taste for what you want, you can go in there and everything affects it in the rick house where the hundreds of thousands of barrels are stored. The different the barrels on the top are a little bit different temperature than the bottom. They age fast. So there's all they call like the center cut of the rick house, like the sweet spot. So there's different ways, but if you know what you're doing, and you can go in there and you can buy barrels and bring them and source them and put your label on them and you age them yourself. And it's that's called sourcing whiskey, but there's a lot of people are doing that. Midwest grain producers out of Indiana, a lot of the bottles on that back wall come from that company.
Oh, really?
A lot of the big names. I won't go into.
No, and I mean the big guys are great too. I mean I'm a longtime Jack Daniel's fan, and actually last year I took what I call the pilgrimage to the motherland, and I went to, I had never visited the distillery, and we did the tour, and I mean it's pretty amazing what they've got going on there, and they make a great product.
They do. When we were doing the book, it's funny because we're doing all the research and everything like that, and we're quite surprised at a couple of different distilleries distilleries of where they're actually being distilled and where you thought they were going to be distilled.
Right.
You know, maybe not in Kentucky, but they're in Colorado or something like that. And it kind of, kind of blows your mind. But it also opens up where, great whiskeys are being made throughout the
great stuff like the High West, right? Is out of Colorado?
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
The High West is out of Colorado, but they do source some of their stuff.
They do
from Midwest grain producers, and then another thing too. A lot of people don't. They think that to be legally a bourbon, it has to be made.
Right, it doesn't have. It doesn't have to be
the United States.
Right,
yeah, it can be.
Right, it just has to follow those other rules.
Sure.
So when you were doing the book, obviously, there's. I think they said there's 250 that you put in the book, right?
Right.
And I noticed some of those were not the big names, and I'm assuming that's because of the blind taste test. But let's talk about the flip side of that. What were some of the ones that kind of shocked you or surprised you that came up that
there
really
were
good?
Definitely a few of them.
Whistle Pig comes to my mind.
Well, Whistle Pig is an outstanding.
It's outstanding.
It got the highest rating that the book
really
gave.
did.
And again, that's blind tasted. They had no idea. So that was a standout.
They're out of Vermont.
Oh, they are?
Yep.
Oh, that's
Whistle
cool.
Pig is actually a farm in Vermont itself, and
I had no idea. That's really cool.
They own a farm up there, and they do a great job. Their Boss Hog is literally, it stands up to their name.
Yeah,
it is the Boss Hog. I enjoy it quite a bit.
But another farm animal name that comes to my mind was the Fighting Cock Bourbon from Heaven Hill Distillery. That one just jumped right out. That was a bottle that we never touched. That bottle sat on the wall at the Aero Club for a long time, and we never thought to use it. And we decided to review it in the book, and it got the highest rating that we gave, and it's actually so popular now that I'm buying it by the case, and there's very few that I buy by the case there. If you order an old fashioned at the Aero Club, that's what you get, and that's a 6-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon. So
that's really cool. I'd never heard of that one.
Yeah, the Fighting Cock. They call it the Kickin' Chicken.
Yeah, the Kickin' Chicken. No, but Fighting Cock.
I like it. That's a great name.
To back Chad up, there's no doubt about it. Fighting Cock is one of the bourbons that is just popping up and trending big time.
It's still a little hard to sell it with a straight face, but it makes a great conversation piece as well. But that one stood out, and there was a bunch of just some of the cheaper ones were really jumped out. The Evan Williams single barrel, the Elijah Craig 12-year, of course. Eagle Rare did really well.
Okay. Yeah, the Elijah Craig I had a few years ago. The 12, they make a 12 and an 18, I think, right?
Yeah, and 20 and a 23. And the 23 year was the oldest whiskey that we reviewed in the book. And that was one that when the bartenders tasted it, and I was watching them, they weren't allowed to compare notes or anything. It was all individual. But as soon as all four of them individually tasted it, they looked at me and they were like, they knew right away that it was something very special. So that it was probably unanimously the favorite of the whole book.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So tell us a little bit more about the different regions. So we talked about bourbon, we talked about Tennessee. You said and rye. Was mash the other one you said that follows strict rules? Because I hadn't heard of that as a class of whiskey.
Well, the whiskey got its start with like in New England when England cut off the rum trade and all that, and we couldn't get the molasses to do the rum. The farmers found it easier here to grow rye, especially down through like Pennsylvania and stuff. So rye was a lot easier to grow than the malted barley. And then when they started taxing that, you had the whiskey rebellion there in Pittsburgh where there was an uproar of basically the farmers and stuff didn't want to pay the taxes. So that pushed everybody down in through Virginia, Kentucky, where they found the corn, and then bourbon was born. But
okay.
But that's kind of like a super brief history of how it got its start down through there. But since then it went through some times where with Prohibition, rye was the big thing for a long time, but then after Prohibition, people tended to find the corn a little sweeter and easier to palate, and then bourbon had kind of exploded after that.
Thank God for 1933.
Yeah.
But
there's
blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah, all the corn whiskeys, the moonshines, that all came through there. Moonshine got its name from making the whiskey under the moon because they were avoiding the taxes and stuff like that. But then there's blended whiskeys, and they don't require as much of a legal that you can put a little coloring in there, a little added flavor. They're not nearly as strict. But if it's a blended bourbon or a blended rye, it has to say that on the label. It has to be dominantly a rye in the mash bill.
Right. Okay. And then the one other too that I hadn't really heard as a class was wheat whiskey. So is it a new thing? Is it a sort of an up and coming thing? It sounds to me like it's probably a lighter.
It's much lighter,
right?
and there's a difference too. There's wheat whiskeys and then there's wheated bourbons, and for instance the Pappy Van Winkle, which I don't think we could ever get through an interview without
mentioning.
I was going to bring it up after the break.
But that's a wheated bourbon, and in a wheated bourbon they basically pull the rye out of the mash bill and they add wheat, so it's a much softer, delicate grain that they produce with, and it's easier on the palate. But then there's great wheat whiskeys too, and of course they're lighter, typically not aged very long, but they're delicious for sure. Highly recommend trying a wheat whiskey.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah, I haven't tried one. I'll have to. Any particular one you recommend?
The Dry Fly, probably. That's up out of Washington. That's probably our biggest seller.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, well, we'll take one more quick break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about the Pappy. I want to talk to you guys about the theft and get your opinions on that.
We don't have it. It's not at the
that underground.
It's not at the Aero Club or at Park.
Oh, man, I wish. Come on, man.
I got a barrel at my house.
Too bad. All right, we'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to Nicksology on ESPN 1700. Brought to you by 619 Vodka, who reminds you to always drink responsibly. Find out more at 619vodka.com.
Hey, Mr. Credit here. If you ever catch me at happy hour, you'll probably catch me drinking a vodka martini. I don't always drink vodka, but when I do, I drink 619 Vodka because it's local vodka from right here in San Diego. I know the owner, and you can meet him too. Go to 619vodka.com and think 619 Vodka when you're out there having a good time. That's 619vodka.com. And of course, remember to always drink responsibly.
CS Keys here to tell you about San Diego's handcrafted ultra premium vodka, 619 Vodka. It's distilled and filtered 5 times, gluten-free, and made from 100% pure mountain spring water for a smooth, clean finish. It's a 2-time silver medal winner and a 2-time gold medal winner already in 2013. America's Finest City has America's Finest Vodka that everybody can experience. Just go to the website, 619vodka.com. If you know like I know, you better tell somebody.
Right now at Fuller Ford, lease an all-new 2015 Escape 4-Door S 4-wheel drive for a monthly payment of only $169 a month plus tax. With only $2,999 due at lease signing, you can drive off in the car of your dreams. 36-month lease for $169 plus tax per month, $0 security deposit, VIN number C26405. Or lease America's best-selling truck, the brand new 2015 Ford F-150 4x Super Cab. With only $2,999 due at lease signing, this lease can be yours for just $277 plus tax per month. 36-month lease at $277 plus tax per month. Zero security deposit. VIN number A9982. Offers expire June 1st, 2015. Go further with Fuller Ford. Great prices, great selection, and great deals where they've treated you like family for over 60 years. Auto Park Drive off the 805 in the Chula Vista Auto Park.
You're listening to Guy Talk live from the Sport Clips Haircuts locker room. Caller, you're on the air.
My girlfriend beat me playing one-on-one.
Whoa, you need to get your man card back, man.
You think?
Hit up a Sport Clips and get an awesome haircut experience and some quality man time.
I don't know. My girlfriend always takes me to her salon.
Nonsense. Be your own man and get a great haircut in a guy-friendly place from stylists who know what guys need.
You may be right.
Sure, I'm right. Take your cut to the Sport Clips MVP level with a relaxing shampoo and our legendary hot steam towel.
That sounds awesome.
And you know those shows about cupcakes and flowers you probably watch with your girlfriend?
Yeah?
Well, you won't find any of those at Sport Clips. We've got TVs at every station doing what TVs were invented to do. Show sports all day.
I am there.
Now pick up your manhood, grab your Y chromosome, and get down to Sport Clips and ask for the MVP. That's all the time we have today on Guy Talk, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy.
Vote, because it's a right and an obligation as a citizen. Vote, because you want to be the voice of change for Mexico. Vote, because you want to help decide the fate of the country. Vote, because you want a strong Mexico. Vote, so you can help decide for Mexico. This June 7th, vote for whomever you want, but definitely vote. Do it for yourself. Do it for everyone. National Electoral Institute, INE. When you illuminate Mexico with their turquoise color, you make the difference. They are not the darkness of censorship. They are the turquoise of freedom of speech. They are not the gray of unemployment. They are the turquoise of opportunities. They are not the shadow of discrimination. They are the turquoise of equality. Think it through. Their color makes the difference. This June 7th, choose turquoise. Vote New Alliance.
You know, Golic, AutoZone does all these cool things to help customers get in the zone.
Sure do. They charge your battery for free. They even loan tools free for bigger jobs.
Right, but what if your zone is something else? Like, what if your zone is winning the ultimate Mike and Mike experience, 4 days and 3 nights in L.A. for the ESPYs?
AutoZone is helping us get you there. It's the Mike and Mike experience at the ESPY Sweepstakes, presented by AutoZone. All the details are at espnradio.com/Mike's ESPY contest.
Cool.
It's called The Zone. AutoZone's going to help get you there.
And now, back to Nicksology on ESPN 1700. Brought to you by 619 Vodka, who reminds you to always drink responsibly. Find out more at 619vodka.com.
All right, welcome back to Nicksology, guys. We've got Jeremy LeBlanc and Chad Berkey. We're talking whiskey all day long. And so breaking news in the last break. So you guys have the Pappy Van Winkle in the basement of the Aero Club? Is that what I heard? That's where
Yes.
it's at? Like, and when is the party? Like, what's the knock on the door I need to make to get in?
Yeah, it's...
No, so I mean, I think you guys heard about it because I sent you the email, right? But there's this big like Pappy Van Winkle theft ring thing that's been going on.
Number 2 on our bucket list on our
yeah,
whiskey
so that's
guide.
what I want to talk to you about too. So the bucket list, we'll get to in a second because I realize Pappy's on the list, but it's not in the book. But obviously, it's one of those everyone should kind of try. But and I haven't tried it. My guess is for the price, it's probably a scarcity thing versus a quality thing. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to bad talk any particular brand. I haven't had it, but
it's. I'll tell you this: for the world of whiskey and whiskey bars, it's the best thing that's ever happened. You know, as a bartender, you get sick of every other person coming in asking if you have it. But we chose not to review it, even though I do have it at the Aero Club. We chose not to put it in the book simply because we wanted to do a book that of whiskeys that you can go out and try at most of your neighborhood whiskey bars. We did do the old Rip Van Winkle 10-year, which is their lower end one. And in the book, in the summary, we basically broke down why we chose not to do it, and it's because honestly, this book is 100% the whiskeys are reviewed off of what the 4 blind tastings said. And I was, Jeremy and I just didn't really want to get a bunch of hate email if the bartenders
if they didn't like
say it was
Pappy
the
Van
absolute
Winkle.
best thing that they've ever had.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
well, it's got to be good at some level. I mean, I don't know.
It's good.
It's amazing. No, it's amazing.
No, because if you read this article, like apparently this thing was like this conspiracy was 8-10 years in the making. People from like 4 or 5 distilleries stealing not just bottles of Pappy Van Winkle, but barrels of Pappy Van Winkle.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you move a barrel of Pappy Van Winkle on the black market, but I guess if there's connoisseurs out there that know you work for the distillery, they'll buy it. I'm sure.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know if they were gonna sell that. They were probably going to tap into that at home.
Well, no, but I mean, they stole the numbers were like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of product they stole.
Yeah.
Like to the point where I almost wish this was a TV show because I wish I could play the clip. I saw this because I happened to be watching some news program out of the corner of my eye, and the sheriff's up there from whatever county they're in, and he's got this table full. It was like a drug bust, but with Pappy. There's bottles of Pappy and all this stuff behind him, and it was like a huge deal that they caught these guys because they were stealing not 10 bottles, they were stealing cases and barrels and all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah, and I think it was Pappy, Buffalo Trace, like they were stealing a bunch of different whiskeys. It's just crazy. I think it's
a big conspiracy, like a celebrity sex scandal. They probably had it stolen on purpose just to get the press and just to make it, just to drive the price up even higher.
It scares because we ran out. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean,
it's all a conspiracy.
There is a cult out there. They call it it's like a Pappy cult. I mean, they track where Pappy is online. You can go online and find out where your local Pappy is and stuff like that. It's crazy. I mean, people are absolutely bonkers for this stuff.
Yeah, but do yourself a favor if you want to get a window into what it's like. Try the W.L. Weller line. It's a wheated bourbon, just like Pappy Van Winkle. That Julian Van Winkle, they ran that distillery for a long time, and that one you should still be able to try for under $10 at most good whiskey bars. So yeah, the W.L. Weller is a really good window into what it's like.
And so, give us some examples of the other ones off your bucket list. Obviously, Pappy's there. What are the other, and especially more of like the surprise ones that we wouldn't think of?
Right. Well, we tried to, pull out some stuff that was, just really hard to find, and also combined with, the last 10 years working at the Aero Club, whiskeys that were the most requested. The Thomas Handy Sazerac, and I'm just looking at the list right now. The vintage bourbon. These are all ones. Everything on this list right now I don't have other than the Pappy, so it's very hard to get. A bottle or two will rotate in once a year, but I don't keep it on the shelf very long. Okay. Yeah. The Sazerac 18-year-old straight rye is another one. The 30-year-old Canadian Club, if you want to venture to that direction. But one of my favorite whiskey that is still somewhat obtainable on here is the Eagle Rare 17-year. So you might be able to find that one, and that's one I highly recommend. Or the Michter's 10-year single barrel. Those are still somewhat obtainable.
Very cool.
Yeah. So in the book, we a lot of them that Chad doesn't actually carry at the Aero Club. We still wanted to mention it because these are, a bucket list is a bucket list. You're going around, you're using this as a guide. You very much might actually bring this book to your local. You bring it right to the bar.
I had a lot of those things on there.
And that's why we put little check boxes.
Yeah,
we put
little check box right next to it, and you're like, hey, do you have this? No, I don't. You go to the next one, and it's a bucket list, and it's something cool that that we thought. With this book, we didn't want it to be the average whiskey guide. We wanted it to have, different types of, good things for the readers, good things, that can, be outstanding versus your regular whiskey guide.
We slid a cigar pairing in there, too, that we worked really hard on.
And some classic cocktails.
That's really cool.
And some really cool classic cocktails from actually some great mixologists, throughout the country.
Sweet. So we're running out of time, but the one thing I forgot to mention early on that I wanted to mention, you brought it up, is that Chad and Jeremy also founded a company called Tin Play, which is well, go ahead, explain what it is, and I know you guys have a new line coming out.
Yeah, well, Tin Play is the product of making your workplace better. We took basically all the existing bar tools that bartenders have been using for years, and we combined them into 3 pieces that work very efficiently behind the bar. So in 3 pieces, you have a 4-in-1 muddle that has a jigger on one end with all your measuring lines in millimeters and ounces. On the other end, it has a bottle opener and a can opener for like stubborn juice or energy drink cans. Then a shaker and a cheater tin. So with the combination, in those 3 pieces, you have a jigger, a muddler, a bottle opener, a can opener, a shaker, a strainer, and an ice scoop, all in 3 pieces. So it cuts down on all the clutter in the well. It's extremely efficient and great to use at home as well.
Nice. And so the website's tinplay.com. I know you guys said there's a new one coming up in soon, right?
The new website will be up in about 3 days, but you can go on there right now and check it out. We have a whole new product line coming in about
1 month.
So all good stuff.
Sweet. Awesome.
Well, we'll be ready for Father's Day. Father's Day. Great
that's
Father.
a perfect idea.
100%. I was going to say the North American Whiskey Guide and the Best Craft Cocktails and Bartending with Flair, along with Tin Play. Excellent for any day.
And we'll post all the links to that up on Facebook and the website when the show's over.
You can grab signed copies at the Aero Club.
Yeah. Really quickly before we go, I wanted to also mention some of the events that are going on this weekend or this week. Thursday night at Mary Jane's Underground at the Hard Rock, hosted by Tim Piles 91X, also brought to you by 619 Vodka. That's Thursday night. And then obviously Reader Tacotopia this weekend. Go on our Facebook page, share the post, and you can win 2 tickets to Tacotopia. Thanks for listening to Nicksology. Thanks again, Chad and Jeremy.
Thank you
we'll
for having us on.
Guys.
Appreciate it.
All righty.
Thank you for listening to Nicksology on ESPN 1700, hosted by Nick Apostolopoulos. Nick is the owner of 619 Vodka. Find out more about this locally owned vodka at 619vodka.com.